All right, today is Friday, October 30th, 2015. My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here in the Austin Reading Room at the Nicholson Library with Yosh Nakagawa doing an oral history interview. And Yosh, we'd like to start all of our interviews with Linfield folks the same basic way. Why Linfield College?
In this school, I came here in 1951. I never thought I would return back to this campus for this day. The story can be told in a simple form. I wanted to come back to the roots of my education after I left America's concentration camp after World War II. And though I did not finish at Linfield College, the 1 year I was able to spend here set my career track of life forever.
So what was campus life like when you were here?
When I was here in 1951, it was still a time of history where there were many things still that is not questioned today. The awesomeness of America is simply, you take a lemon and you make sweet lemonade. I came to this school because in my days, this school was affiliated with a group called the Baptists. Number two, it had a norm of being a Christian school. And furthermore, it was a small college. Why I would ever come here was because of the influence of a pastor that came to the Japanese Baptist church. His daughter attended this school and graduated. And she was the best recruiter to convince me to come to this school instead of University of Washington. Now, if I had known, I may have never come to this school. But the winds of America blew me here. And what I had earned after my release from the concentration camp, I never knew I would run out of money because I came to this school. I didn't leave this school because I wanted to. I left because I had no more economics. All that I had earned to come to school, I spent my 1 year here. But all the things I learned in that 1 year made it possible for me to come back to this school. I even had the opportunity to serve on the board of trustees of this school. I had been for 50 years after I left in the world of sports. I'm here because you're celebrating 60 years of winning football. You have a history. You had, in my days, you had a classmate that was in school. His name was Ad Rutschman. Never knew he'd be a great coach at this school. At that time, you had a football coach. His name was Paul Durham. I now see a statue. And he left the school to become the athletic director of Hawaii. Over there, a person came to play football over here. His name was Hugh Yoshida. And one day, when he returned to Hawaii, he became the athletic director. All over the world, in my world of sports, Linfield name came up. When I was at the school, you had a senior person playing baseball. His name was Bob Martin. And Bob ended up playing for the Yankees. Scott Brocious, who you had here, was an MVP. And I had the pleasure of meeting Scott. But that's not where the story's going to end. Bob Martin, his father was a physical education teacher in the city or the town of Twin Falls, Idaho. Twin Falls, Idaho, in 20 minutes, that's where the concentration camp where I was at. And I said to Bob, do you ever recall playing baseball in the concentration camp? Because all the teams would come to play. He didn't quite remember if he got to play, but his father went, of course. You see, the impact on what you call the Linfield spirit never left me. Because I see buildings here now. They were my friend, Dick Ice. Your buildings have names of people I know. That's why I came back to tell this school my thanks, my gratitude. Now, there are things that I will share with you. I don't want you to take it wrong. When I came to this school, I could not be in a fraternity of your national groups because I was not the right color. But I joined a sorority. Another classmate of mine who went through the same experience, Jack Ichikawa, and I became members of the Lambda sorority. Scott Brocious said he wanted to join a sorority, but he wasn't accepted. And he was the right color. 1951, the women were way ahead of the men. You see, I'm trying to tell you that if you look at the history of this school, I see people here that I would have never seen when I was here. The growth of Linfield is the awesomeness of America. And I'm proud to say I spent 1 year at this school because my friend, after he went back to the University of Washington, came back to graduate from this school. That's the story that Linfield's got to hear because it's a perception for students from another viewpoint. And all I came here to tell this school is a story. I don't want to convert anybody. I just want to tell you what it was like. And if I didn't have the snack shack here to prepare milkshakes and things for the students after a football game, I could have never run 20 sporting goods stores and do the business. I learned. If I had never joined the sorority, I would have never understood Title IX for women in sports. If I did not come to the school and find that this was a Christian institution, I could never have freedom for the Buddhists or the Muslims or the Jewish community. I work with them all. I was just at the opening of the Holocaust Museum in Seattle, Washington. And we had a common ground on the story of the Japanese American. That's what Linfield's all about. It is an institution that taught me not all were good. They were lemons, but we made sweet lemonade today. And so that's why I came back. I came back twice. And we did a video here by a Japanese company. It was called Act of Faith. It had nothing to do with religion. It had all to do with the community of people of the world. Do you know your presence is in the atomic bomb center of Hiroshima and now Nagasaki. Because my friends, my hosts, the Sims, made it possible for us to build a museum of two Caucasian persons that would have built with hatred from us for building homes in Hiroshima. But it doesn't end there. There was a black woman. In fact, there were two. In 1949 went and helped build. We built a bridge for the black family to the land of Hiroshima, Japan. That's Linfield. You keep talking about the spirit of Linfield. You really got to know what people are saying. But furthermore, you have to understand gratitude. The young people must be told it's their turn. I can't tell you what to do, but I can give you a roadmap. Linfield gave me the roadmap. I'm taking up a lot of time, but I want to give you one more story. I could never play sports. I had to work. But when I came to Linfield, I didn't need to work. I was in a snack shack. I didn't know I'll use up all my money, but I could play it. I turned out for tennis. It's the only letter I ever got in sports. I still have the L. But that's not where the story ends. I worked with all the great tennis players of the world. And they were my friends. Arthur Ashe, Bjorn Borg, Chrissy Everett, Billie Jean King. Do you know? They all did what America is all about. They broke down the barriers. Billie Jean used to curse me. She says, Yosh, you never do anything for the woman. I said, Billie Jean, are you crazy? She says, I'm going to tell you. You sell all the girls a Jack Kramer tennis racket, but you don't sell boys Billie Jean King rackets. She made her point. There was a man called Jackie Robinson. Everybody knows, even students today, I say, what's 42 in baseball? Jackie Robinson. He was a solitary man that broke the walls by he and another owner. But I know he would never believe that Ichiro Suzuki, a name sounding like mine, would come to play for the Mariners in Seattle. He just did the right thing. And that's what Linfield must understand. Live with the truth. Don't be afraid of the truth. You don't want to make cosmetics when there's a hurt underneath. Because freedom is fragile. With a swipe of a pen by the president, I was no longer free. But I was at the school a couple years ago for Peace and Justice done by the Sims. There was a young girl that followed me who was crying. And I was telling her, this group, a story. I was not an American. I was a non-alien. And my parents were aliens. The girl behind me said, a Hispanic woman, she said, it's exactly what I'm going through today, except you change the words. It's called documented and undocumented. They're not Americans. We called the place where I went a relocation center. I went to a camp. America thought I went to a summer camp. I was evacuated or relocated to a better place. Yes, it's not the concentration that my Jewish people felt, but it was America's interpretation of a concentration camp. But we don't know the story. The two stories are from Alaska and Hawaii. They were two territories. The bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, but do you know the bombs fell on Alaska? Called Dutch Harbor. Do you know there were a group of people they called, in my days, we thought they were Eskimos. They called themselves host nations people, but they were the Aleuts in Tlingit. And they were captured on that little island of Batu and brought as prisoners of war. But those that were still there were also imprisoned by America into the territory of Hawaii. And some of them were married, intermarried. So they had not only Russian names, they had Japanese names. And they came to the concentration camp where I was at. My education never taught me that. Linfield never taught me that. It's 70 years. It's not your fault. It's my fault. I never told the story. So I may not return to this school again, but I have left you a good roadmap. So that's a long story of why I'm back. Serving on the board of trustees, helping you raise money is not the reason I came back. It is the students of this school that is the future of the world. You are the peacemakers of understanding. Because this school must not forget its roots. If you don't know your identity, you can't share. Your job is to share, not to convert. Your job is to listen to each student so that you can find common ground. And when you share who you are no longer a stranger. I lived in Pioneer Hall. I would look out, there was a big oak tree. It fell during the Columbus storm. I haven't forgotten anything. But that's because if you die young, it's no big deal. When you become a dinosaur like me, it's everything. So when I speak to you today, it's my gratitude to you, for you are the Linfield spirit. And that's why I'm here today.
So I'd like to ask, because a lot of our generations don't know much about the relocation concentration camps. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like growing up?
Let me put it in today's story, because the window is now open. And it's going to close, because it can't stay open forever. The story of the internment must be put into a more obvious question that students today want to hear. Because they have in their hand all the dates and all that, but they don't know the story. It takes a human voice that was there to try to tell the story. The only reason I'm telling the story today for the National Park Service is I said I was too young. I don't know anything. And they asked me, was I there? I said, I was there. They said, do not let us write the story, because from our perception, we won't understand what it was about. So I have studied again my incarceration. And this is a story I'm going to share with you. There were only approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans that were interned. I use that all because you must understand, my parents could not be citizens. If they came from Western Europe, they could be citizens in 30 days. They came because the Chinese were excluded first. And they brought in the Japanese, and there's too many of them, so they said, we're going to exclude them, they can't become. So though I was born in America, though I could be a citizen, I too lost it. I too lost it. But the 120,000 that were incarcerated was all of Alaska, and those that were intermarried, the west coast of Washington and Oregon, and all of California. The bombs did not fall in any of those states. They fell on Hawaii, and they had two Aleutians. The reason the 160,000 that were in Hawaii, they were not interned. Now I'm just going to drop that for a moment. Not all, there was a few that were non-Americans, males only, that were interned. Maybe as much as 2,000 of them, of the 160. We were at war with Germans and Italians. Now, I want you to know, there were some Italians and some Germans also interned, but they were not Americans. They were Germans and they were Italians. Those that were German American, Italians, I'm certain they felt some pressure, but they never lost their freedom. I'm not going to give you an answer. There's a reason. And the man I disliked the most, his name was J. Edgar Hoover. And he said a statement I read later. He says, the only people that are not a threat to America were the Japanese Americans. They had no empowerment, they had no economics, and they didn't look to be the sabotagers. They're highly identifiable. The others are already in government or part of the system. Now, I'm going to jump, no comments. I'm going to jump. If I saw the movie called Sound of Music, if I went over the mountains, I was free. If I worked in Washington, D.C. or New York, I was free. If I just got over to Spokane, Washington, if I just got over to Ontario, Oregon, I was free. That's for students today to argue. Why? If you use common sense, you come up with an answer. It just took the quietness of America. But what happened in Germany? If you did not speak up for the people being hurt, one day it's going to be you. And the question is asked of me, can it happen again in America? I said, do you know 9/11? But I'm proud of my group of people. They said, no, don't put them away. I come back to Linfield. I said, you know, you're a Christian school. I wasn't born into Christianity. I thought that you believed in freedom, but you didn't speak. But we did a video called The Act of Faith that I brought back. They were Caucasian people that spoke. It's not the skin color. It's not any of that. They were more Japanese than I was. But I'm going to reverse that to you. I worked for a Scandinavian company. They were Norwegians. And I never knew that Norwegians didn't like sweets. Today, after 50 years of being with them, I'm more Norwegian. I'm just yellow on the outside. And I also know, you might know some of the names. The Nordstroms, maybe some of you shop there, they're of Swedish background. They would never let me be the president of their company because they don't let Norwegians run Swedish company. You see, that's taking the lemon and making lemonade. It's not true. Linfield is not just for one group of people. Everybody should be welcome. And the welcoming has to be real. The thing I see in Linfield today is something that's a growth of our lack of understanding. And that is to listen and know your culture, retain your languages, and then share it. I can't speak Japanese. Why? Because if I spoke Japanese, my parents said I wouldn't be American. My second language was Spanish. And you know, today I tell students, every language you have out in the world today, if you have it in law or in any expertise, it's worth $100,000 more in pay for every language you can master. We have to get over the world's idea that English is the only language. I hope that it's not a negative. All that you can do is a betterment towards peace. And it begins with a small school called Linfield College. I'm the recipient of that knowledge, and I never knew I received it from this school.
So I'd love to hear the story of how you were allowed to join the fraternity or the sorority. How did that come about? How did you even think to apply?
Well, it's real interesting because there's a story there. They were going to have their rush party, and they were going to serve Chinese foods. So they asked us to help them. So we said, sure, we'll help. But I could use chopsticks like a hole in the head. But I could be the greatest pretender. I could teach them. And so could my friend. Number two, I knew some of the girls because they came from a high school in Seattle that I was there. And we were much more, shall we say, diversified. And they knew that there was no way I was going to be Theta Chi or Phi Beta or anything else because it was very clear it was only for whites only. It wasn't just me. If you're Jewish or anything else, you were not black or anything else. You weren't allowed. And some of the national sororities would have been that way. But the group that we helped, they got the largest group of girls to join that group. So we became very important to them. And when they heard the story, can you believe I still have the letter that was written to me, to my friend, he received one, to become lovingly a member of the Lambda sorority. And you know, this school, Vivian Bull, who's the president here and your current president, would not believe the story. It took Scott Roches to convince me that he didn't know the story. Because for them it was a lark. But I said, no, you weren't good looking enough to get in. You see, it's exciting because those are the stories this campus one day will talk about. And as I talk about my friend Billie Jean, I said, Billie Jean, I never played tennis. Arthur, you're King Arthur in England. I said, and you know, we talk like this, and he asked me one question one day. He said, Yosh, no one has ever written the story of the black history of sports. And I said to him, Arthur, you write it. Do you know he did? And I got his books, the first group. Billie Jean was the same way. She didn't ever use polite words. She had the language of a longshoreman. And Billie Jean was absolutely phenomenal. That was just because I played a little tennis. I thought I should know. I just returned talking before I came here with Stan Smith in Hilton Head, Carolina. And we were talking about, and I shared with them a story that doesn't really pertain to Linfield, but it pertains to what I'm talking about. The most prestigious club, tennis club in Seattle, is called the Seattle Tennis Club. I couldn't even deliver the tennis balls to the tournament going to the front door. I was to go to the service entrance. Today, I'm a full member of the club, but I couldn't afford to pay for it, just like I couldn't afford to pay for this school. I got in for free, my wife and I. It's not economics. It's the relationships that you build with people. So I can go to China. The Chinese don't like Japanese. But my son is married to a Chinese American girl. And they don't know the difference because you call them Asian American. And their parents all speak English. If we had retained our language, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Because they knew we were Chinese or Japanese because their parents spoke the language. Today, it's something good. In my days, it was bad. So it's not unique to any one group. It's all of us. And until you bring down the story at the school for everybody, do not work by Robert Rules of Order. Because when you do that, you know, you get a winner and a loser. They don't come together. Think of consensus. Everybody's voice is heard. And when you disagree, you agree to disagree. You're still friends. The word friends has no barriers. If you're a Democrat, you have an enemy called a Republican. If you're Jewish, you have an enemy called a Buddhist. If you have economics and you're poor, you have an enemy that is called rich. But if you become a friend, friends of Linfield, you have no barriers. That's why I'm back. I'm free at last to tell the Linfield story. And I only came here 1 year. And there was only one reason I left: economics. The next person that comes will get to come 4 years. That's my dream. And I see it today. And it's going to get better because you got a better roadmap. Just don't make the stupid errors I made. And make the roadmap better for the school. It starts here. It doesn't start out there. It started with my incarceration. What freedom's all about. And the issues today, I don't care if it's the gay movement or whatever it is, don't take away their freedom. And remember, you don't need to agree to be a friend. When you have unanimity at the school, you haven't heard somebody's voice. Diversity is America's strength, not their weakness. We have to change our thinking. You're lucky. You're already on that path. That's why the school can have me say what I'm saying. In my days, I couldn't say this. The Japanese American remained silent. They were called the quiet American because they wanted to be white. They wanted to be successful. So don't blame yourself. We got caught up in the same momentum. But I learned if I didn't uplift these white persons, I knew white America would not uplift them. We uplift too many people of the day that didn't do their job. History has turned it around. Okay? History has turned it around. You must look at history to say who was the prophetic voice for you. And quit uplifting the voices that are not for you. I don't say to knock it. Understand the truth. And something good would come out of that. So, in the 2 visits back, has made me a 4-year veteran of the school. And now I am a graduate. I gave my commencement address. I have graduated from the school. And I'm so glad that I can share my story. It's just a story. But I hope it's a good story. Anything else?
I'd love to know how you went from, how you decided to get into the sporting goods business, how your Linfield experience might have influenced that, and then how you built that.
I always loved sports. I have a book here that says baseball saved us. Baseball, I played in the concentration camp. And the things that are interesting is I always loved sports. I never knew why. Because I couldn't play. I had to work. When I came here, gee, they said, Yosh, you want to be a cheerleader? You want to do this? I said, no, I got to work. Oh, you want to go play tennis? Oh, I never played tennis. I turned out for basketball. I could do things. I was rich. I could do things every rich kid could do. I was at Linfield. I loved it. Only 1 year. I went back I went into the sports world. I worked. All the people I worked for, they wanted to go skiing to Sun Valley, down to Mount Hood. They wanted to go fishing. They were the world's greatest people of athletics. The fellow named the Whitaker twin, Jim Whitaker, who now helped start REI. He worked with me. He's the first man to climb Mount Everest. I didn't think that's a big deal. I didn't know what it meant. He just climbed the mountain. Then the man I worked for, Olaf Hewland, first man that jumped 100 meters on skis in the world. What's the big deal? What's 100 meters? I didn't know what that was on a pair of skis. They were just everyday people. There's a name that came up. That was one of the owners of the store. His name was Eddie Bauer. And there's Eddie Bauer stores all over America. They were all people of sports, but I didn't understand. I didn't understand. But I made every one of those people in the sports world in the world my friend. And everywhere I went, I told them I never skied with them, I never golfed with them, never played volleyball or soccer. And they would always say to me, well, how did you know them? How do you know them? It was the funniest question. I said, they're my friend. They just happened to play tennis. I was with Jim Zorn and Steve Largent. They're old. I said, how did you guys get so old so quick? I said, I saw you on TV, the story of Steve Largent, then Alan Page, all of these, Warren Moon. I never played football. I never played with Ed Rutschman, but I know them. That's what I learned at the school. I'm going to be in sports. I never knew sports was way ahead of government, religion, education. They brought more things into the world of sports, a breaking down and making peace. It's just too bad after the game is over, we have to face religion, government, economics. Because when you play sports, the best will play. If the rules are the same for everybody. And I never believed, I grew up thinking the women of Asia can never compete in sports. They're in kimonos, they're docile. I saw the American team rejoice this year, being the country of girls. They should have been geisha girls called Japan. They were world champions. Then I see a group of girls coming from Korea that play golf. And of the top 10, 7 of them are Koreans, but they're not from all Korea. One girl is from New Zealand, one girl is from Hawaii, one's from the mainland, but they're Koreans. I said, and somebody says, well, they better learn to speak English because they're not good for the sport. I said to myself, when they were all white, was it wrong? If they were the best, they should play. Someone said, there are too many blacks playing basketball. I said, how can you say that? If they're the best, let them play. And not where they're coming from. Now they got a Chinese that came 7-foot Yao Ming. The reason I don't like your Starbucks is I worked with the Starbucks people because they owned the Sonics. And Howard Schultz sold the Sonics to Oklahoma City. And he used a Starbucks. I said, I'd rather be Snack Shack again. Okay?
So I have to ask, because he's a personal hero of mine, I'd love to hear a good Jackie Robinson story.
Jackie Robinson is a story that Linfield should really understand. He was a great athlete on the West Coast. He learned to be who he was because he was on the West Coast. The West Coast is unique. The East Coast is very traditional. The Ivy League schools are great. But I'll put Stanford up against any of them. I'll put this school up against any of the small schools back there. Not because you're better than it's the people. And Jackie Robinson, in my days, I was young. He did it in the late 40s. The abuse he took is what I'm talking about. He couldn't live with the team. He couldn't eat with the team. He took it all. They spit on him. Everything. The average human person cannot do that. His early demise is a penalty, what he paid for you and I. Mm-hmm. The other thing about him is that when he opened the doors, he didn't open it for himself. Look who came, Larry Doby, Campanella, all of them came. So many people who break down barriers only break it down for themselves. Okay? All the great leaders, I don't care if it's Billie Jean King in tennis, she didn't break it just for tennis. She broke it for everything. But they didn't uplift her. And they criticized her for everything from lifestyle to everything. And they put her down. Mm-hmm. They put Jackie Robinson down. If they all knew the story, what he went through, they would cry like I did. Because I know when I saw people on the other side of the street, I ran to the other side. I didn't want to get beat up. Would it have happened? I don't know. But the fear, and he was able to not be fearful. That's the story of Jackie Robinson at its heart. The movies and everything else, it's great. But it is why there is 42 on all the stadiums and no other number. Think about that. Look at the great name. Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams. And I go to the classes today and I say to the young kids, I have a trivia, I have a little prize. Tell me who number 42 is. Hands all go. And he doesn't look like many of the kids I talk to. Do you think skin color had anything to do? No. Kids don't know the difference. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Yes, he was black. But that didn't mean he wouldn't do it for, look, the next group of people. They came up, they were Hispanic. They came out of the Puerto Rico, now Venezuela. Do you know some of those countries hate us? Yet they all play baseball. Okay? Look what happened. Not only did they come, now they come from Taiwan, Korea, Australia. Everybody thinks Australia is Asian. They're in the Pacific Ocean. And they tell me they're more Asian than ever. But there was a time as an American I couldn't go to Australia. That's what Linfield is all about. Don't deny the truth. Then you'll have the students understand the Linfield spirit. It's when you don't give them the truth, they can't buy your spirit. Don't deny what is there. You have every type of being on this campus. And you should be welcoming. You're not exclusive. For the young people, it's not too late. For people like me, we'll take it to the grave. So the future of this school, I can't believe the building's here. And it's going to get bigger. I hope you never become a big school. There's something sacred in being small. America has lived too long that big is better. In my culture, small is more beautiful. The bonsai. You could look at all your tall trees, but that little bonsai is beautiful. So there is something to being a college. That is your roots. Don't pretend to become something else. And you know, you may not understand when I say 60 winning years, no other football team in America, and you have never uplifted the positive of that. Because the other people are skeptics. You did it by cheating. Mm-hmm. You never rejoice in the truth. You gotta tell them.
So you said earlier that when you never pictured yourself coming back. So how did you end up back on the Board of Trustees?
Because I was fascinated with the people that I cared about. I wondered what happened. Because I knew so many of the people outside of Linfield, but they never talked to me about Linfield. I didn't know if it was because I didn't finish or what. But once I got back, they all started to talk to me like I was something at Linfield. I was a nothing. The only reason I even felt obligated, and I gave it back because I lost my deposit, I didn't come back, I got a $125 scholarship. I think I left them $250 of my deposit because I couldn't make it back. So I gave back to the school all I had. Okay? I never begrudged it. But when I came back, I found, gee, I have a story to say. And your professors, Millar and Denise Farag, they want me to speak to their class. I'm not an academic person. I have no talents to speak, but I have a story to tell. And with the Sims here, who I've known all my life, they live in Amity. I used to wonder, what is Amity? Amish? It's crazy. That's where they live. I'm staying with them. I used to have to pick walnuts and mistletoe to have money for Christmas. There was walnuts on that campus here. And we'd have to go out and find oak trees to cut down mistletoe for Christmas. That's the Linfield I wanted to see again, and I'm seeing it today. We ate in the commons. The reason I'm so proud to have been in a sorority, I couldn't get enough food that all my sisters would give me their desserts and everything else. I would have a triple meal with them. The men would have eaten up all my food. You see, that's what I'm calling gratitude. How do you tell that group, thank you? It's something that goes over their head because they never understood where we were at. I saw the Wakemans that ran the snack shack. Their daughters were my girlfriends for life. But her mother taught me how to run the snack shack so I can open stores to take care of the hundreds of customers. I learned the sport of tennis because they would teach me, I knew nothing. And I got to play on the courts of Lewis and Clark and PU and everything else. I didn't even know what a court looked like. And they were fabulous. The estate of Lewis and Clark. In business, I got to know all of them. And today, this school has all those things. It's amazing. It's a dream come true. It's got a greater accomplishments than I could do in my world of sports. And I got to know the best of the world. And I never got to play with them except to be their friend. And I'll end this story. I'm going to France, hopefully, because a friend of mine retired. And I said, how did you get so old? His name is Jean-Claude Killy, one of France's greatest skiers. And I took care of him every time he came to America. I never skied with him. I'm going back to France to see a place built for a group of soldiers of the 442nd. They have a park, a peace park in France. And I'm going to ask him to take me there. That's what friends are all about. That's what the friends of Linfield are all about. They're my friends. I have to come over the bridge. A bridge is a two-way street. I want all Linfield people to know when they go over the bridge, they must return one day back to their roots. And that's why I came back. If I'm going to walk the talk, I had to come back. And it's the easiest thing to do because saying thank you does not cost me a penny.
My name is Camille Weber. We are here with Yosh Nakagawa. It is Friday, October 30th, 2015, and this is part 2 of the interview. So, Yosh, I'm interested in hearing about how your relationship with Linfield has evolved. We talk about earlier in the interview how you left Linfield early in your higher education career because of financial issues, but you came back, and I'm wondering what kind of things you were involved in when you came back to Linfield, and how you've seen Linfield evolved from your perspective.
That's a very good question. Let me see if I can answer it so that it makes sense to you and me. I came to Linfield because it was not a given. I came because there was a reason. I never knew what the reason was. Now, I use the words, two things, the winds of God or the winds of America. And everything in my background would have said I would have stayed in school in my backyard. University of Washington, Seattle University, or anything else. But it was the influence of one man. His name was Emory E. Andrews, and his family, and his daughter that came to this school. And this family was so important to me that at that period of my life, because that family went through the incarceration of our families, of the Japanese Americans. And they followed us through our whole ordeal of our incarceration. So not only was I impressed, my parents not only were loyal to that, but they wanted us never to forget. So when we returned after our incarceration, and then their daughter came to Linfield, for some strange reason, she wanted me to go to Linfield. And that was the first winds of God to saying, you're going to go to Linfield. Now, if you understand how naive I was, I didn't have economics, nor did my parents. When we left our internment era, we had nothing. We were homeless. We had $25 and a one-way ticket to go back. So I understand homeless. I understand having nothing. And yet, I came to Linfield. But from the day I left in 1945, in that 5-year period, I had worked as a paper boy. I had worked on farms, picked beans. I had a little money and a little $125 scholarship. I thought I could go 5 years of school. I didn't know what room and board costs or anything else. I didn't know what books cost. But it's okay. I got to be a Linfield student. And again and again, I learned all the things of survival at Linfield. And through the years, after I went back, Linfield dropped out of my mind. It's normal. I'm faced with a big school called the University of Washington. I have all the things to face. But as time goes on, one day they said, gee, with your background, and you work with the Baptists, would you serve on the board of trustees? I said, I looked at the list and I knew a number of those that were on the trustees. Some of them were their family or their brothers were my roommates. So I said, okay, I'll go and see my friends. That's all it was. And there was a person that was Vivian Bull at that time. I couldn't, again, the irony is very interesting. I couldn't serve a long period of time because I had a conflict. I also became a general officer of the American Baptist. So I had to leave my short term on the board of trustees. But at that time, in my days, the Asians that were coming from Hawaii. They were coming from a school called Punahou. A very, very high school in Hawaii. And I wanted to know if I would see anybody from Hawaii. Well, they had a Hawaiian club here. So I talked to them. And I asked them the questions. And I saw myself living again in the Linfield spirit. But then after I left, I never thought I had anything I could contribute. Then I start working on the baseball bat and stuff again. I'm old now. And all of a sudden I'm going to Japan, and the Sims are there. And all of a sudden, out of the blue sky comes a company that wants to do a film. And he says, gee, we'll do this video. And in it, they knew we were coming to Linfield because of the Sims. And they asked the Sims in the school if they can film at this school. And the Sims found out that, yes, they can film at this school. The school doesn't even know this yet. They're in that film with students that is today. It's only been 2 summers ago. You are in the film. That's my proudest moment. It's not me. Yes, I'm a part of the film, but Linfield College is in there. Can you believe it? Linfield College is in that video, and it's going all over the world. Because it was made not by a Christian organization. It was made by a Japanese company that makes tires, racing car tires in Los Angeles. And I'm going to be down there. And we're going to honor the producer, Janice Tanaka, and the person from the company named Ai Tokuna, 2 women. And I want to tell them there's more to the story. Who knows? Linfield might be on it again. Not the University of Washington. They got everything they need. But Linfield is unique. And it's no thanks to me. If the Sims were not here, I would not have been here. It's your friends that opened the doors. And Larry Sims was on the board of trustees here. And his wife was an educator. And she was getting her doctoral degree at the Seattle University. In Seattle, we did things together and took us all over the world. And they came to Amity. They lived in Seattle and they came to Amity. And nothing to do with my wanting to come back. I had to come back because the winds of America blew me back. I can't take any credit for what I have done. I'm not that empowered. I don't have titles to tell you should be doing, even listening to what I'm saying. But I do have a story. And I wish to tell you again, if you don't use my story, it's okay. You don't lose anything. I'm still excited.
So you talked about the film that you were involved in Linfield was featured in. Can you talk a little bit more about what that film was covering?
Be glad to. It's a story of America. My story is an American story. People try to parochial everything. Yes, it's about Japanese Americans, but it's not a Japanese American story. It's an American story. Because all of America is a party to the story. The story of this film is a video of a family, a Caucasian family, not a Japanese American family. The company in Japan wanted to do a public broadcasting for their public educational TV in Japan of those in America that helped us that weren't Japanese Americans or Japanese. They were looking for Americans. They never knew in their package they're going to get all these various stories. I never had any dream that they would come to Linfield. They came to Linfield because we were doing a story called Peace and Justice that was being done by the Sims. And they were doing it not only at Linfield, we went to Willamette, and at the time we thought we might go to George Fox, but we did finish off Linfield and Willamette. And that was not a good time for us to go to Willamette because I think at that time Willamette had beaten Linfield in football when we went there. See, I'm still in the world of sports, okay? So I belabor points to try to tell you how these coincidences give you common ground. There's a reason that's greater than what's on our radar screen. If I know what I'm doing today, I wouldn't have been here. Because I would say it's a waste of your time and my time. I'm here because I didn't want to be here. Because it's not my comfort zone. But it is, because it's my story. And I don't need to feel I'm unsuccessful because they didn't believe my story. At least I got to tell my story. And that's my gratitude to people like you, to sit there and listen to my story. And coming to Linfield, I had no idea, but the winds of America, that is good news, is why I come back. I don't want to bring bad news. If I come, I want to bring good news of gratitude. Not my voice, not what I'm saying. It's the people that never get the opportunity to do what I'm doing here. That's the voices I'm talking about. Don't ever listen to my voice. And the other thing is, don't listen to the voices that come from the mind only. Listen to the voice that comes from their gut and their heart, and the mind will be okay. Because the mind will say thank you when you're not thankful. The mind will say I love you when they don't love you. But students catch on to that real quick. The kids will know real quick if I'm for real or not, just by my story. Too many people that would talk to you want to say the right thing to be successful. I'm free at last. I don't need to be successful. I just have to tell the story. So people could put me down and I'm happy. Continue.
So you talked a little bit about the Seeking Justice forums and your involvement in that. I want to hear a little bit more about what you did in those forums, and if you shared your stories with your family and yourself being interned in those concentration camps, and as well if you have participated in any similar projects.
I would never have been who I am if I wasn't in sports. The sports world taught me much more than my education and my religion and my government. Because as the barriers start to fall in sports, we were way ahead of the world. Now, I didn't know that. I was too naive. But, you know, I learned real quick that when you choose teams, they always wanted the best person to be on their team. It was sort of interesting to me. I thought, that's right, that's normal. And when I would look at those teams, they never looked alike. But if somebody else selected those teams, they didn't look the same. So I believed in the kids I played with, that they knew how to get the best team. The owners and many other administration, they had too many other rules. But in the game of sports, everybody could play if the rules were the same for everybody on the field. And you can boo the ref till the cows come home. But if you lost, you had another chance to come back to play. Now, that was my basic fundamental. Now, I want to talk about woman. The reason I thought women in sports would be great was not what the woman in sports wanted. I said, my goodness, that's a new market. I'm in the sporting goods business. Women will really goof it all up. They'll buy fashion, they'll buy everything. Boys buy a stinking t-shirt and sweats, and they don't care what they wear. The market was huge. Do you know today there are more women in sports than men? You know, something that's good for business. They're dynamic. Now, do you know there are women that are coaching men's sports? I didn't know that. I didn't have the slightest idea. I never knew what Jackie Robinson, I agreed. I said, Jackie Robinson, you're right. Nobody from Asia can play baseball. They're too small. Only Americans can play baseball. I wasn't any different. But because we broke down the door and we opened it and we progressed, the issues that are faced in the gay community, I faced years before it ever became evident. But they all played. And you know something? They became champions. Today in their world, someone can't even get a job to play the game of their job. Sports is amazing. A team from Jamaica could have a bobsled team. Crazy. I climbed Mount Rainier with the Whitakers. I said, I'll never climb another mountain. You gotta be stupid to climb a mountain. There's nothing there. Okay? Don't give me any credit of what happened. I'm a part of a team that believed in freedom that I lost. That's the one thing that I retained, that I will never, ever let anybody take away from somebody else, is their freedom. I know what it means to be disliked. I know what it means when I can't say I love you. I know what it means that the skin color of somebody else would mean they're going to beat me up. I know for years I could not be with my friends on December 7th because I was the enemy that dropped the bombs. Peace and freedom. But don't think they were wrong. I was wrong. I could tell the country of Japan, it took me years before I could tell them I dropped 2 atomic bombs on them. And they looked like me. But I could tell them, you dropped the bombs on Pearl Harbor, look what happened to me. You see, fairness is the truth. And we all have the burden of truth. I had the same hang-ups as anybody else to being successful. I just was lucky I was in sports. Because every time I went out to the field to watch them play, because I couldn't play, I was working. I said, isn't that wonderful? They can come down the mountain and ski together, and they don't speak the same language, they don't come from the same place. I go to the baseball field today, they have 3 interpreters out there at the mound. I can't believe it. 3 interpreters all at the mound talking to the pitcher. One speaks Spanish, one speaks Japanese, one speaks English. Sports is way ahead. Billie Jean talked about equal pay for the athletes long before it becomes normal. You see, Martin Luther King talked about a dream for everybody. That was my dream in sports. It's for everybody. Peace and justice, I felt, was exemplified in the sports world. Do you know, I was at a point of life when at the beginning, we couldn't raise money for the American Olympic team. The problem today is they got too much money. They got too much money. They're not using it right. All the sports are having the same problem of success. Soccer. It's not just us Americans. They're from Europe. They're not just from Europe and America. They're from Asia. The fundamentals are the same for the world. And the sports world taught me, when somebody wants a touchdown or a goal in the crowd, they don't care. They want that touchdown or whatever it is. It's sad that when they go back, if they want them for dinner. We have a long ways to go. Linfield is the roots of tomorrow. That's why I work on peace and justice. I got peace and justice to understand at my point of life that I can contribute to America. That I wasn't a token, I wasn't a footnote, I was a part of American history from 1880 to 1952. They said, what makes you have those dates? I said, in 1952, the Water-McCarran Act passed, allowing people, my parents, to become citizens. 1952, in my lifetime, it happened. I can't begrudge the fact of the past. Don't let it happen to anybody else today. We're doing the same thing. We're afraid. And don't take their freedom away. That's my answer to peace and justice. It's a long one.
It's a good one. So you've given us a lot of inspirational advice for us, but I'm wondering if you have any kind of advice that you'd want to share for my generation, the students currently coming and studying at Linfield.
The greatest thing I want every student to learn is don't give up who they are. Know their identity. Some of you don't know your identity because you're not hyphenated. Some have so much in their makeup. That's the microcosm of the world. You got to know your roots. The more roots you have, the deeper you have to work. Once you know that, you must share immediately to your friends. But I want you to take time to listen to their story so the both of you can find common ground. That's the legacy I want to leave to the students today. We never listened to each other's stories. We only heard one history book. Do you know, I had to learn when I went back for the National Park Service to Valley Forge. They took me to the place. 10,000 of them were freezing up there. Across the way were their enemy. Do you know they all looked the same? They didn't look different. They came from the same roots. Except the one that over here wanted freedom. See, it's not because our skin color or our religion. Families do it. The Civil War was not fought over the blacks. It was fought by the families. What am I saying? Simple. If you tell the stories, the truth will prevail. Question the obvious. It's right in front of you. Hey, the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, Yosh. How come they didn't go and you went for them? They look like you. I never asked that question. I was naive, no. I was ignorant, no. I didn't think that was the right thing to say. So for me to be talking to you, you interviewing me, I'm the happiest person in the world. I don't want fuddy-duddies. They already know the answer. And their answer is not what I want to give them. Because they want me to tell them what they want to hear. I don't want to tell you what you want to hear. I just want to tell you my story. Go ahead.
Well, you've been involved and have known a lot of individuals that have been influential in enacting social change throughout a really significant time during U.S. history. So what is your advice to students my age on how they can enact social change and make a difference in their communities?
The simplest thing is to have the courage to go places you don't want to go. To learn things that you don't want to learn. Because it's too easy to learn and do what you want to do. But you're going to find many times that journey wasn't very pleasant. And if you go to places that you don't know, you will find they could be your friend. And it's a blessing that money can't buy. I'll give you a story that maybe will make sense to you. On MLK Day, one of my friends came up to Seattle, Washington to speak on the MLK Day. And my group of people took him to Bainbridge Island, where the evacuation, they called the evacuation, the imprisonment started on 250 people. And he went to this site and he said to the group, because I wasn't there, he says, this is sacred grounds. He said, I'm going to get Yosh to come to Atlanta. And I went to Atlanta to meet with the Martin Luther King Jr. family. And I went to the Ebenezer Church and I saw the historical site. And he says, Yosh, you never told me your story. I said, you're right. But then he told me his story now. He was the man that picked up the body of Martin Luther King Jr. when he was assassinated. He grew up with the family, and he never told me the story. At that moment, we were at two places that we never thought we would be at. But what did we find? The truth. As good as we thought we were, we don't always go to the places we should go. And that is why I get excited about young people. They can travel all over. I just tell them, go to places you don't want to go. If you don't want to go to China, go to China. If you don't want to go to this place, go. If you don't want to, because even my friend Arthur Ashe, when he went to South Africa, the Black Caucus was mad at him. Arthur, you're playing a white man's sport. You're not black enough. He called me up and I said, Arthur, you gotta go. I said, there's a lot of pieces, a lot of people that look like me there. He went against the wishes of his people. He developed a player there named Yannick Noah. Yannick Noah went back to France to lead France to a Davis Cup championship. Those are the stories America doesn't know. And I have to teach the Black Caucus that story. I have to teach my own people the stories of how the Native Americans, which I call today the host nations, that we were on host nations' land. And we deny it. It's not one group, it's all of us. It's not putting down anybody. It's bringing them good news. And quit coming together to become enemies. I want to have peace before I drop another atomic bomb. I don't want to drop the atomic bomb to find peace. It's too late. That's the message I leave for you today, because that's the issue today. Is atomic power good for the people? I want to be on the side of science. Used properly, yes. But used by bad people could be the end of Spaceship Earth. What a challenge. You asked me to tell you. That's your job. I'm going to watch you like a hawk.
Good. I want you to. So my final question for you, Yosh, is where do you see the future of Linfield going?
The future is the microcosm of the world. We are the world. Spaceship Earth is now Spaceship Earth. Because you got these things are instantaneous. I go to places, by the time I get home, my wife has the pictures and got all the minutes before I get home. That's going to be Linfield. You're going to be all over the world. Instantaneous. I don't know what that means. I can't hardly, my grandchildren, I had to finally admit, Grandpa can't do anything. They can fix my computer in 5 minutes. It takes me all day and I still can't do it. What am I saying to you? That's what excites me. I know my time has come to pass it on. See, the world of athletics is wonderful. You know why? You know when it's over with. You have to go on. Many people get old, they don't know when it's time to move on. It's your turn. it's not my turn. Because what you can do, we no longer can do. And that's the hardest thing for me to get across. I cannot do what you can do, and you will do it so much better than I. So learn from my mistakes and follow the roadmap and make it better. If that could be your mantra, I can leave Spaceship Earth and watch you like a hawk.
All right, well, that was all the questions that I had prepared for you. But is there anything in addition that you would like to share? Perhaps there's a question I didn't ask and you wanted to answer?
All the students that I came here is why I'm saying thank you. They were not all in agreement with me, but we have the Linfield spirit, and we can be friends. And the colorations of this school will change. I might have been the token Asian out of internment, but at this school, everybody wants to know, what does it look like? It's on that roadmap to better good news. And I don't know what it is. The only prophetic voice I can give you is the legacy of the roadmap. Don't duplicate the errors that we have made. Change all the things you had learned that didn't work. Learn that peace and justice is far better than violence and war and hatred. That is more reason to work at than to build the best missiles to destroy. Change the priorities of how we think. Because how we think, we still have this. I'm going to Israel. I've been invited by the Jewish community. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not a minister. I'm not a man of theology. They gave me a word. I said, why are you inviting me? They said, you're a man of peace, of communities. You have gone beyond your own. That's what Linfield's all about. You have gone beyond. You're a communities of peace. That means every person. And that's the highest honor this school can get. I didn't know why I would be invited back here. And I came back because I believe in peace and justice and the freedom that belongs to you. Don't let it, any person, take it away. And I'm going to end with this statement. It must be taught. It is not in our DNA system. Because I learned doesn't mean you learned. You must keep your roots and teach. Do not ever take freedom for granted. It is fragile. And I believe in education to continuing that journey. I didn't use religion. I didn't use government. I used Linfield/education. I am a recipient of that from Linfield.
Make sure to spread the message. Make sure that everyone knows your story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yosh, for joining and talking with us and sharing your experiences with us. And we'll end the video.